Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's workshop. I am so excited. My name is Aaron Marcus, and the workshop today is all about how to record auditions from home. And this is just it's a really important topic. Uh, the technology has changed over the years, and it is crucial that everyone learns how to record great auditions from home. So, just to go over a couple of ground rules here first, I wanted to let you know that a lot of people sent in questions, people who were not able to attend live. So I have a list of questions that I will be going through at the very end of the workshop. If you have any questions, there are a couple of ways that you can ask them, and I will start taking your questions after I go through all the questions that have already been sent in to me. So you can do one of two things. You can actually click on the chat uh, icon and then just type in your question there. Or if for some reason that's not working for you, there is a little hand that you can click on, raise your hand, and my producer Jonathan will call on you and he will open up your mic. Just make sure that either you have a built-in microphone in your computer or you have a standalone mic so you can ask your question. But we're going to save that for the very end of the day as well. If you want to just type in your question and send it in, that's fine. And I'll have Jonathan read all those questions for me. The very last thing before I officially get going here is, as I had mentioned in my emails to you, everything is being recorded, and within 3 days, by Wednesday, you will have access to watch this as often as you'd like, whenever you'd like. You will be sent a link. You go to my customer hub page, and you will also be able to access the bonus materials there as well. So I am very, very excited about getting started today. So let's get going. Fantastic. So um, there are three things that you are absolutely going to need in order to record auditions from home. And let me just tell you, there are certain markets where auditions are done at home, are done all the time. And there's some areas, and I'll talk more about this later, where typically you still need to be there, although there are always exceptions to the rule. But here are the three ingredients, the three types of materials you're going to need. One, you're going to need something to capture the audition. And it might be a camera, but we're going to talk about some other options as well. You also will need lights. And you don't want to use your regular lights at home. You don't want to rely on natural sunlight. Once again, I'll talk about those in details later. And you need something to capture the sound so that your audition sounds very, very clean and clear. So, as far as cameras go, there are many, many options out there. You can spend a tremendous amount of money. You can do things pretty economically. Um, I have found when I was using cameras, and you'll hear about how I'm doing it today. Uh, and look, I have no financial connection with Canon. I've found Canon cameras to be helpful to me, but there are tons of cameras out there, and I have a link, but certainly you can just go, do a Google search. You can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay. There are lots of different places that you can go to and look at cameras. Some of the key things, and probably the most important key ingredient that you want to make sure that your camera has, is a little side view. So that way, when you are setting things up, that you can actually turn the viewer around so you can see your placement. Make sure that the shadows aren't bad, to make sure that you are lined up properly, that your body is clearly seen. And we'll talk more about the physical part of the auditioning a little bit later. But anyhow, camera is a really important item to have. And I would say you could probably spend somewhere around $300, $250, $300 and get a decent camera that will work. And let me just tell you, just overall, I was adding up a lot of the different things that you could possibly spend money on. And I would say that you could really have your own, little studio put together somewhere around $700. And look, I'm sure there are ways that you can do it even much more economical than that. But I guess the main point is you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to do it. And when you think about the savings in gas, in hotels, I mean, you're talking about maybe, 4 auditions that you might have had to have driven to and spent money on hotels at where you're at a break-even point. So anyhow, uh, a camera is a really important type of material to have. What I do now is I use a laptop. I use a Mac laptop. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this entire workshop on my Mac laptop. I find it to be really helpful. It's nice and clear. So anyhow, that's another option for you. Now for iPhones, um, in the past, I've heard casting directors say, I don't want to see anything on an iPhone. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it because that's one of the questions that came in, and I'll go into a little bit more detail later. But in today's time period, especially with the iPhone 6, if you needed to, you could actually shoot the audition on an iPhone. I would use it, honestly, I would see that as a last resort. But if you absolutely needed to, you probably could get away with shooting on an iPhone. There are other things that might be a little bit more problematic as far as editing goes, but I'll talk about that later. But that is an option, especially if you already have an iPhone, you can't spend any more money right now. Keep that in the back of your mind. But I would say either a great laptop that has a really good built-in camera or a camera itself. Okay, so another piece of equipment you're going to need is a tripod if you're using a camera or an iPhone. And once again, I'm just sharing one link with you. You can find many, many different types of tripods. Here's one of the things to keep in mind. The tripods, they will vary tremendously in price, and you can spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a tripod. It's unnecessary. I have a very basic kind of tripod. It's just cheap plastic materials, but it stays in place. And as long as there are no earthquakes happening, the camera is not going to move. And that's all you really need. Something that you can raise the camera up and down with. That's really very important. If you need to tilt things for a slate, which I will talk to you about later, that's also a feature that even a basic tripod will have. Now, if you decide that you want to use your iPhone, you will want to get an iPhone tripod adapter. And as you can see in this picture here, it's a little device that's great. Once again, these things don't cost a whole lot of money, but it's something that you will use to connect your phone to an actual tripod. And a lot of people don't realize you can actually get a tripod for your iPhone. I know it looks a little bit like a Martian here, but it's essential that you do get a tripod because, and I've seen this happen before, and I've also heard some casting directors talk about this, where people will try to lean their iPhone up, leaning up against books or putting it in certain ways. And one of the problems is all of a sudden you're in the middle of the audition, something shifts a little bit, and then your iPhone falls over. It might not put you in the exact position that you want to be in. It can create all kinds of problems. The adapter and the tripod itself, it's not that expensive. And so if you are going to be using an iPhone, definitely get the adapter and the tripod. Now, something that you might not be familiar with, but let's just say you have a camera or you have a laptop that you normally use to record your auditions. And let's say you are out shopping, you are on a set, you are on vacation, you are someplace, and all of a sudden you get an email or a phone call from your agent saying, "Hey, I've got a great audition for you." And you're thinking, well, I don't really have anything to shoot with. All I have is my iPhone. Well, there is an app that you can get that will help you with shooting your audition on your iPhone. And so anyhow, you can just go to the App Store and just download it, and this will be very helpful to you. Now, here's where we get into some components that a lot of people don't really think that much about, but it is really important. Your lighting is crucial. And like I said earlier, you don't want to just use natural light. Part of the problem is, if you say, well, I've got great windows, there's a lot of sun. Well, let's say there's a day where it's very cloudy and all of a sudden your face doesn't look very sharp. Let's say it's raining outside, it's dreary, it's gray. Or let's say for some reason you have to shoot at night and you are only, getting natural sunlight for your lighting. It's going to present a problem. You definitely want to purchase some lights for shooting auditions at home. That way you've got a lot more control over your look. And here's what I would do. Look, I'm going to give you show you some examples of the lighting that I use, but let me also just tell you what I did. I went to a local camera store and I went in there and I explained to them very specifically what I'm doing. Here's my camera, or here's the laptop that I'm using. I need to record auditions. What lights would you recommend that I use? Also, if you need to, maybe you could even take some pictures of the room that you're planning on doing the auditions in. That might give them additional information as to what kind of lights are going to be best to use. So you want a light stand that has a reflector, and you can see, what that looks like. The reflectors, let me just show you, are right in here. And the thing that's really nice about having the reflectors is that you can move things around, you can highlight certain areas, you can help take some of the shadows away by using this. And these are not super expensive items to purchase as well. You also want a clip lamp. So basically, look, the best case scenario is you want 3 lights. I use the clip lamp, and I've used it in a couple of different ways. And one of the things, and actually it's fun. It's going to take some work, and you might spend, a number of hours. I spent days doing this, but and you'll need somebody else to help you with this. But you want to do some testing with the lights, and figure out very specifically where to place the lights. So here is one place where I used to use the clip lamp. I had the laptop, and you'll see actually in a later slide exactly where I put my laptop. It was a neat idea, and it's in a file cabinet, and the drawer pulls out, and that's where I place it. So at one point, this is what I was doing. I had 2 of the reflector lights, and then I had white tagboard, just like cardboard, and I had it sitting under my laptop. It rolled over the laptop, and I would actually aim this clip lamp, and it would bounce off the white and reflect into my face. And it helped clear up shadows. It helped make my face nice and bright. One of the key things that I've heard from lots of casting directors is they need to see your eye color. And if the lighting is not really good, you can't see it and your eyes kind of look dead, and that will really hurt your performance. That's why they use lighting. It helps really bring life into your performance because you see the life and energy shooting out of your eyes. So I did that for a while, and then I also found that I was able to still get that light in my eyes from from one of the reflector lights. And then what I did was I took this clip lamp and I attached it to my background. And once again, you'll see an actual picture. You can see exactly where I place it. It helps take, and I kind of pointed up, it helps take the shadows off of the background. That's something else you want to make sure that you avoid, because some of the problems that people run into when they are doing their home auditions is there are shadows, and there could be shadows in the background, there could be shadows going across your face, your body. It's very distracting. It looks unprofessional. You need to make your home auditions look sharp, clean, as if you were in the casting director's studio. Now, look, you're not going to spend the kind of money that most casting directors do with the equipment, but even with much more basic equipment, still, you can make things look really, really good. So anyhow, by having a clip lamp, it allows you to attach it to different things, and you can swivel it around because there also is a reflector in there. And that way you can aim it exactly to where you need it to be. Okay, here's something else you might not have thought about, but without a doubt, you need a diffuser for your lights. So the diffuser, let me just show you, is this uh, little piece. It's not plastic. It's kind of like cloth slash plastic. I don't know exactly what it's made out of, but it goes over the reflector. The reason why you need that is because if you shoot the light directly on you without a diffuser, you get this one beam of light hitting your face, and it just doesn't look good. Having the diffuser will soften things, and it will help even out your face. So I have diffusers on all three lights, the clamp light and the two reflector lights. And it's really, really good. You'll see when I talk in just a couple minutes, you don't have to worry about things getting too hot or burning up because you're going to be using special bulbs and you won't have any problems with the diffusers. So now we're going to talk about the lights. So you don't want to just use your regular, whether it's energy efficient lights or just regular lights from home. When I first got started and I was playing around with things and I didn't realize that I needed special lights, I tried putting on a diffuser with a regular light, and that was not a good idea. Things get very hot, they can start to melt, they can get smoky. It's a bad decision. So once again, when you are at the camera store and you are going to be purchasing lights from them, make sure you ask them what are the bulbs that should be used for these lights, and always get at least one extra light or two, so that way if you are in the middle of getting ready to shoot an audition, or you're in the middle of an audition and one of the bulbs blows, well, now you've got a replacement. Now, I'm not saying you've got to have a shelf just stock filled with these things, but at least have one extra one. I mean, the chances of all three going at the same time probably are kind of slim, but definitely have at least one, maybe two bulbs. So that way, in case something does happen, you can easily replace them. One of the things that's great about using these special kinds of bulbs is they really don't throw off heat. And these lights are going to be pretty close to your face. And if you're using regular lighting, all of a sudden, you're starting to perspire a little bit, which is not good. And so this stays nice and cool. And especially if you're shooting in the summer, you don't want a lot of extra heat hitting you. So anyhow, it's really, really important that you do get these special bulbs for your particular lights. Okay, so we talked about shooting, on different devices. And once again, I like, either a camera or a laptop. That would be my first and second choice. You need, I would suggest, three lights, one clip, two reflectors. Now for sound. Now, some people use shotgun microphones. Um, I've never used one. A shotgun microphone, one of the things that's nice about it is you don't have to have it right next to you. You just have it pointing towards you. It can be out of frame. Certainly, you don't want to, see it in there, and it will record, really, really well. I don't use that, and I think there are, not I think, there are less expensive alternatives that I would suggest that you try first. But I just want to let you know this is available to you. These are kind of cute. These are little iPhone boom mics, and you just connect it to your iPhone, and that way it will give you a much better sound than if you're just recording straight onto your phone. So since I don't record on my phone, I don't use this either, but I just wanted to let you know this was available to you. Now, this is called a lavalier mic. And when I was using a camera, this is what I use. Now, even though the camera has a built-in microphone, the lavalier mic will sound much, much better. They're not expensive. You can get these things for, probably $20, $25, somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact cost of it. And it takes a one little round battery. And once again, always have a spare battery just in case you're in the middle of something and it dies on you, or all of a sudden it's creating some noise, and that could be partially due to the battery starting to die. Is a pretty long cord with it, so you can be sitting, pretty, fairly far away from a camera. Plug it in, and then just make sure. And I've done this. There's an on and off switch uh, for this lavalier, and I remember once doing this long audition, and I forgot to turn it on. There is an on and off switch, so make sure you turn it on. And the other thing too is if you are going to be using a lavalier, a couple things. I always take the battery out when I'm done. I mean, let's just say, for instance, you go a month without another online audition or longer. This way the battery is not being used and you don't have to worry about things corroding at some point. So, look, it's a little bit more work, but it's definitely in your best interest to take the battery out. And then what you can do is you can just simply run the lavalier up through your shirt, your blouse, your sweater, whatever it is, and then just attach it to something, up here. And it's okay if that's visible. People get it. It doesn't stand out. It's just a little clip. There's also a small windscreen that goes over the microphone, which will help if there is any popping sounds, coming out of your voice. And it will sound so much cleaner than if you just use a microphone that's built into your camera. Now, it just so happens that for my Mac laptop, the microphone sounds really good. And so I just go directly using the microphone that's built into my laptop. I don't even have an external microphone. Uh, I mean, I still have my lavalier just in case I need to use the camera at some point, but right now it's not even necessary for me. So anyhow, that is another great way to capture the sound. Now, you also need some kind of clean background to shoot on. Don't make this mistake. And once again, I've seen people do this where they will shoot outdoors. They will, and look, sometimes that's the scene and they might ask you to shoot outdoors. But that's more of the exception to the rule. If you're shooting indoors, your background needs to be very clean. You do not want to have, pictures in the background. You don't want designs on the background. You don't want wallpaper going on in the background. Some people will just try to throw a clean white sheet and hang it up somehow, attach it to the wall. And that could possibly work. You'll have to test it out. You want to make sure there are no wrinkles in there. You also want to make sure that you can't see through it and then see other colors in the wall. What's best is if you don't have a clean wall to shoot on, then either purchase a collapsible background. And these things are really good. They come in various colors. It can be blue, it can be white, it can be green. I like just having a nice white background. Um, and these things, they actually fold up. So once you're done, if you don't want to keep a backdrop sitting up in your apartment, your condo, your house, all the time, you can fold these things up and just hang them up, put them, on the back of a chair or something and have them just, leaning up there. What I do is I actually have a screen that can be used to project onto, and I've attached that to my wall, and I can just pull it down, which is great. And then when I'm done, just kind of yank it and put it back up, and it works really well. But the key thing is make sure that the background is clean. It's not distracting, and that's a really key factor here. You can't have anything going on that's distracting people from watching your performance. Because if you do, then you're not giving yourself your best opportunity. And sometimes, if things just physically don't look very good, they're going to just dismiss you right away. And they might not even spend much time watching it. So, have a really nice, clean, and clear background. So here's a picture of what my studio looks like. This is my home office. And as you can see here, here is the screen that I was referring to, and it's just attached to the wall. When I'm done, I can just, pull it and it goes back up. Here is one of the reflector lights. I am sitting in a chair here. Now, what I've also done is I've, figured out exactly where my height needs to be. So I need to put a couple of books on the chair to raise myself up. Here is the clamp light. It's sitting back here, and it will shoot light in this area, which helps take away any of the shadows there. This will cover the left side of my face and also helps clear up this area. This covers the right side of my face. And here's the file cabinet that I was telling you about. And basically, honestly, this happened to me. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I wake up because I'm trying to figure out. So how? Because I used to try to bring a table in here, and it was really it was tough to do. And then every time I wanted to shoot, I would have to bring this table in. I would have to take it, and all of a sudden it hit me. I thought, wait a minute, I've got a file cabinet. I can just take this drawer, pull it out here. I'll stack some things on top, and I'll put my laptop, and it sits right there. And that's exactly what I do for every audition, and it looks great. And so even though I do have some pictures up over here, you don't see any of them at all because the shot is pretty tight. For any audition that I do, there's some space on the top of my head. It goes from around my chest up. Typically, that's what the casting directors are going to be asking for. A nice tight shot so that your face is very, very clear and visible. Okay, so um, let's say you've got the equipment, you've got the lighting down, you shot your test, and now you need something to edit your audition with. So here are some options. And I'll tell you about voiceover editing as well, but let's just talk about auditioning for film and either film, TV, or commercials right now, on camera work. So if you're using a Mac, iMovie is great. And what I did was I set up an appointment, and I went to a Mac store, sat down with a specialist, and once again, I actually I recorded just a little test, and I brought that out. So that way, for me, the way that I learn best is to have somebody actually show me how to do things. So I actually had something in iMovie, went out there, and I said, okay, so here's what I need to do. I need to be able to chop off the very beginning, because at the very beginning of your audition, you're kind of fumbling around a little bit. You might be, hitting a little start button, record button, and you want to get all of that junk out of there. At the very end of your audition, there are some basic things that you need to delete. So you finish, you're looking around, you hit stop, and then you stand up and you walk. So you want to get all of that junk out of there. It's really very, very basic stuff. Um, and so I went out there and just had a quick lesson, and I learned exactly how to do it, even for those of you who are not really computer savvy. And look, I'm not any kind of tech pro. I can do very basic things, you know, pretty well. And I've learned what I've needed to learn in order to do things with what I have to get done in mind. You can also go to YouTube, and there are tons of videos where people explain, how to do things. But anyhow, using iMovie is really good. It's simple, and you will learn how to do this stuff pretty quickly. If you're using a PC, then you can't use iMovie to do editing. This is a program that I purchased, and this is before I bought a Mac. And I used to shoot everything, like I say, with my camera. I would download it onto my PC. And it's called iSkysoft. And you can download this program. And I'm trying to remember, there is a fee. This is not a free one. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's somewhere around $30, $40 for the program. Not only can you do basic editing with iSkysoft, and it's not, once again, it's not super complicated. It just takes a little bit of time to play with it. And, the other thing too is what's really nice with today's technology. You can find people who work with this stuff, whether it's, going to YouTube. Maybe there are, meetup sessions with people, who are using this type of equipment, and see if you can just go and ask questions. But so not only can you edit things using iSkysoft, you can also frame things. So let's say you're shooting your audition, and you can do the same thing with iMovie as well. And let's say there is some junk in the background, to your left, to your right. Well, you can go in there and just frame it in a way so that you cut it out completely, which is really nice. And if you need to reduce the size of the audition, you can do that as well in iSkysoft. And then you can, you just save it to your hard drive. But anyhow, so those are the two different areas. If you have a Mac, use iMovie. If you have a PC, and there are tons of programs out there and software that you can use. I'm just sharing with you what I have used and what works well for me. So let's say this is a narration audition, maybe a radio spot audition. Uh, it could be a lot of, maybe it's just a voiceover, and you get the phone call and you think, okay, so now I've got to do this audition. How do you do it? So there's a company, it's called Audacity, and that's what I still use. It is a it's free software. It's great. Look, once again, there are tons of programs out there. There are programs, I'm sure, that do a whole lot more than what Audacity does, especially the free version. But for what I do when I'm auditioning for either radio spots or narrations, matter of fact, I just did this recently, and it's for it's a company that does financial. Actually, it's a huge company. I don't know if I should mention the name, but anyhow, it's a huge company, and they do financial planning for people. And I did the audition for this at home using Audacity, sent it in, and booked the job. And then because they are out of state, what they did was, I mean, this would not be nearly good enough, and I don't have the equipment to do this at home. I went to a local studio, a recording studio near me, and they just patched in. They were in Ohio. I'm in Maryland. And they directed me. They were able to hear everything. And so for the actual job itself, I just went to a local studio. But the audition, I did it strictly from my home using Audacity. And once again, it's an easy program to use. You can do the audition. You can turn it into an MP3 format, which is pretty typical, and then you can actually email that as an attachment, because MP3s are normally pretty short, and normally for these auditions, they're not very long, and they're not that big. But anyhow, I really like Audacity. So that's the actual program, the software that I use. But as far as recording it, you've got a couple of options. One is, and you can test this out, to see what works best. You could use an earbud, which is what I'm currently using right now, because I know it sounds good. I also sometimes use, and it's not this specific one, but I do use a Logitech headset that has a built-in microphone. And it sounds pretty good. Once again, it's not something that you would use for the final version, but for an audition, it sounded fine. It captured the sound of my voice really well, and they could, get a really good sense of what I sound like. Now, if you want to go really high end, and the amazing thing is, this is not that expensive when you really think about it. But if you're thinking about doing podcasts, you want to do like really good sounding, high end sounding voiceover auditions. I've never purchased this. I did use it once at somebody's place. It's called a Yeti, Y-E-T-I, and I just want to make sure that it does fit into your computer. But and I think it's somewhere between like 80 something to 90 something dollars, which for a really high end microphone. And once again, look, you can probably spend thousands on microphones as well, but has a really, really good sound to it. And I've heard a lot of people just say how much they like it. So if that's something that you're looking for, I would suggest look into the Yeti. Okay, so let's say you have done the audition. Now, once again, if it's a voiceover audition, you could probably just send that out in an email, because chances are it's going to be small enough that you can do that. But if you are auditioning anything from home, you are not going to be able to attach it to a regular email. So it's just way, way, way too big. And there are lots of different ways of sending them to, either it's going to go to your agent, or maybe directly to a casting director, maybe directly to a director, whoever wants to get it. So here are a couple of companies that I've used. One company is called WeTransfer, and you can download it and sign up with them. There's no cost to doing that. You can also use Mail Big File. That's also a free service. Now, I do pay for Mail Big File. I was using them a lot. They ask for donations. You can purchase a professional level, and you do get some additional bonuses with that. And I don't know, just personally, I felt a little bad using it so much and not paying them anything. And so anyhow, so I purchased the professional one, but you don't have to, especially when you're first getting started and you're testing things out. And I find both of them to be really good companies and good services. And all you do is you go in there and you'll type in who you want to send this to. You will have your email address in there. It will ask you, what program do you want to upload, to send, and so you just upload it from your hard drive. You can also add an additional note in there. So if you're sending something to the casting director or your agent, just wanted to let you know, here's the audition that you asked me to send for this film, this TV show. Please let me know that you got it. I mean, you do get a notice saying that it's been received. I always like to put that in there. I just want to hear from whoever I'm sending it to that they really did receive it and they were able to open it up. So anyhow, so those are really good companies to work with. Now, as far as, so far, all I've been talking about are the actual materials, software, programs that you need. But now I want to spend a little bit of time before I go into questions about physically doing the audition. So there is something called the eye line. And typically, when you are auditioning for a film or a television show, whether you are auditioning at home or in the casting director's office, you are not going to look directly into the lens of the camera like I am right now with you. What I would be doing is typically if there's somebody else that you're reading with and they have a reader in the room, and that's somebody that the casting director hires or brings in, and that person is reading the opposite lines with you. So typically the reader is going to be to the left of the camera, so you're right, and I might be talking to the person here. So here's the camera. This is where I'm going to be talking during my audition. Now, when you're doing this at home, who knows what your setup is like? And, if you are going to be reading with somebody else, they might not have a space to be right there. Like it's always best as an actor, it's always best if you can look, at the other person as you're doing the scene, but sometimes you don't have that luxury. And that even holds true on a film or a television show. I just worked on a TV show, um, and the other actor was having their close ups. I didn't have any lines, but still, they asked me to sit in the spot where I was when I had my line, so that way the actor could see me and react to me. So I gave him, a very specific eye line. So if you can, have the other person, sitting, standing, whatever, however you've got things set up, just to your right of the camera. So if that can't work, then the person could be anywhere, but that's still where you want your eyes to be, right there. The only exception to the rule of looking directly into the lens of the camera during the audition is if it is a television commercial, then typically you will look into the lens of the camera. Now, that doesn't mean in the middle of your audition you might not look away and then come back to the camera, of course, but you're looking directly into the lens of the camera. The only other exception to the rule, I mean, look, there are a couple of television shows where all of a sudden the character, will turn away from an actor and then look and address the camera. But those are very specific shows, and those are unusual things that take place. 99% of any television show that you see, people are looking at the other actor, not into the camera. The only exception to the rule, besides those shows, if you're reading for the role of a newscaster or maybe a reporter, where you will look directly into the lens of the camera. So if you're auditioning from home, then that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, you look off to the side of the camera. The other thing too is, let's say you're doing a scene and there are two or three other characters in this scene. You want to create the scene as if it's happening. So if I'm doing a scene with three other actors, what I will do is I will place one actor here, I'll place another actor here, and another actor over here. And that way, as I'm doing my lines, I will look over here, and over here. And I don't want to go too far. You don't want to do a profile, in most cases, unless it calls for it for some reason. You still want the camera to be able to see your face. So, but you want to differentiate between one person, the other person, and the other person. So create the scene so that people really believe and feel like they are there. So make sure that you've got very specific spots. Sometimes you need to pick a spot, whether it's against the wall, maybe there's something else in your room that you can look at that will be your eye line, so you know this is where the actor is. Now, the other thing that could happen, and I just had this, it was for an audition for a television show. Uh, Crazy thing was, and it's just a little bit of a side note, did this audition where I was leading a therapy group. And as well, the short story is this: as it turns out, I did book the job. Uh, they cut the role, and then they wound up giving me another role. It was very nice of them to do that. The director liked my read. But the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is for that particular audition. Now, I was in the casting director's office, but if I were doing that at home, here I am addressing a therapy group. And in this group, there are a lot of people there. And so I was talking like this during my audition because there are a lot of people in this room. It wasn't just like a little circle, it wasn't just two or three people. There are a lot of people. So feel free, you don't always have to look into the lens of the camera if it's not right to do that. And that's what I was doing. So make sure that you do find an eye line. And if it's more than one person, then find those people and make it very consistent. So as far as where the reader should be located, once again, if you can actually look at the other actor, that's always the best. But if not, then let the reader be any place, but make sure that you choose a spot as to where that actor is going to be. Now, as far as slating, so just in case you're not 100% sure what that means, here's what slating is all about. Slating is a way of identifying yourself. Now, you don't always have to slate. I find that especially in New York when I'm auditioning, all of my information is already in the program with the casting director. So when I walk in there, sometimes I don't even have to slate. Sometimes I do. It will vary. And when you are auditioning from home, that is one of the questions you need to ask your agent or whoever is sending you information or asking you to do this audition. Do you need a slate? And if you need a slate, what information do you need in the slate? A slate could mean anything from, hi, my name is Aaron Marcus. That could be it. Could be, sometimes I've gotten requests for, hi, my name is Aaron Marcus. I am 6 feet tall. Sometimes they want, hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh 158 pounds. Could be, hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. I'm 6 feet tall, weigh 158 pounds, and I'm represented by so-and-so agency. I live in Maryland. It can vary. I'm reading for the role of blah, blah, blah. Every slate is different. And once again, this is a little bit of a side note, and I do workshops just on this topic. But since we're here, let me just share this with you because I'm thinking about it and I know it'll be really helpful to you. There are two different philosophies with slating, and both of them make sense to me. I don't know that one is right, one is wrong. I'll tell you about both of them, and then I'll tell you what I do and why. Some casting directors will say to you, when you slate in character. So let's say you're auditioning for someone who's very nervous. Then they might ask you to do your slate like, um, I'm Aaron Marcus, and do it in a very nervous way because they want to believe that that's who you are. If you're the tough guy, they want you to slate as the tough guy. So that way they look at you, they look at that slate and they go, yeah, that's the person. That's one philosophy. There's another philosophy to slating, which goes like this. Slate as yourself. Typically, when I'm slating, it's warm, friendly, approachable, somebody you like, somebody you feel comfortable with. Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. And then, after I do my slate, I will take a pause for literally a second, come back, and go into character. Then I'll make the change. The reason why I do it that way is because I want them to see that I can act. And what I have heard is that sometimes they are concerned that if you are that character, you might not be able to make adjustments while you're on the set. And that happens all the time. Directors might ask you to do a number of different things, and they want to make sure you're not a one-trick pony, that you do have the skills to alter, your read, to alter your emotions, to make changes. So that's why I like to slate just in a nice, friendly way, and then go into character and do the read. And that way they can see that I do have that ability. So anyhow, you absolutely need to ask, how if they want you to slate, and if so, um, what do they need in the slate? The other thing too is you're going to want to ask, I know this was one of the questions that came up later, so I'll wait to go into more details later. You also might want to ask them how they want you to label your audition. And what I mean by label, like, so when you are doing save, or save as, sometimes people will ask for, um, your first name underscore last name, the role that you're reading for underscore your agency. And it can vary many, many different ways. So always ask how they want you to label the audition before you send it in. And one other thing also about the slate that I forgot to mention, um, there are two other pieces of information that you need about the slate. Not only what information do they want in the slate, but also when do they want the slate to appear in the audition. Sometimes they might say at the beginning, sometimes they might say at the end, sometimes they might say as in two separate videos. Shoot them separately, save them separately, save the names separately. So it might be, Aaron Marcus, uh, teacher, name of agency, slate, and then the other one's the actual audition. And you also need to find out what do they want you to do camera wise. Sometimes in a slate, it's still just chest to the top of the head. Sometimes they want you to say your name or whatever information they need in a tight frame, and then they want you to pull back and show your entire body, and then come back in for a close up. You're not saying anything at that point, but that way they hear the slate, they see your entire body, and then you come back in for the close-up. Now, this should all be very quick. You're not going to spend 5 minutes, having this beautiful, shot where you're pulling back and it's very dramatic. It's just really fast. They want to get a sense of your body type. So those are the things that you definitely want to find out from whoever is requesting this audition. Not only the information in the slate, physically, how they want the slate to take place, and also how to label it. Okay, so there are tons of questions that came in, and I want to make sure that I get to everybody's questions. So I'm going to start off with the questions that were sent to me from people who could not attend live. And for those of you who are here live, you can either click on the chat box and type in your question and just hit send. If for some reason that's not working, you can always raise your hand and my producer Jonathan will call on you. And I'm going to do that after I get to all of these questions. So I printed these out. This person wanted to know, and I also had mentioned I don't like giving out names just in case, if you want to ask some kind of question and for whatever reason you don't want your name attached to it, uh, I'm not going to call you out and give out your name. So everything's anonymous here. Um, so this person, is it okay to shoot on an iPhone 6? She has a tripod, um, but editing is an issue. So I'm not sure how to best deal with that. So yeah, it's true. Editing on an iPhone, I've never done that. I would think that it would be very complicated, and it just might not be as simple as doing this. So if you do need to shoot on your iPhone, what I would do is I would download it to your hard drive and then use a regular editing program to do the edits and then send it out. So that would be my response to that. Shoot it on the iPhone, download it, and then edit it on your hard drive. And then, like I said before, you can send it out using either Mail Big File or WeTransfer. Both of those are really good companies. Um, Somebody also had mentioned there was a specific camera that was recommended to her. It was a JVC, and she gave me the model number. It's about $400 plus. It works with an external mic, which is always really good. Um, she wanted to know what I thought of that. Look, I'm not an expert with all the different kinds of cameras that are out there. I am sure, like I was saying before, I like Canons. I'm sure there are many other cameras out there. I would go to a camera store and just talk with people, look at them. Um, Once again, let people know very specifically what the use is, how you're going to be using it and why you're going to be using it. And you'll be able to get some really good information that way. And also, like I mentioned before, you're looking at somewhere between 250, 300, maybe $350. I don't think you have to spend more than that to get something that will work for you. This person wrote in, I've recently read that you shouldn't slate for a taped audition unless specifically asked. Is this true? And what is the proper slate? And where should it appear in a taped audition? Okay, so I mentioned this before. That's one of the questions you want to ask. I would tend to think that any home audition that you do, you want to have some kind of slate in there so people know who you are. Um, I think that would be really helpful. Um, and once again, I would just simply ask. Now, as far as where it should go, once again, that's something you won't know unless you do ask. And there's no one right way of doing it. I can tell you that when I audition live, I always prefer to audition at the very end if I have to. I mean, like, I never say, "Hey, by the way, would you mind if I audition, if I slate at the very end of the audition?" I mean, I'll do it whenever they tell me to do it. But if I'm like mentally prepared, I'd rather just go straight into the audition if I have a choice. And the same thing holds true if I'm auditioning from home. I just prefer to do my audition, get that done, and then do the slate afterwards. I just find it easier, especially if it's a character that's pretty different than what I'm going to be doing in my slate. And once again, make sure you know how to label, because I have heard of casting directors who will make it very specific as to how they want it labeled, and if you do not label it properly, they won't even look at it and they'll just toss it out. And there are some casting directors that I find that the whole process is complicated, where sometimes they need some very specific things. And so what I do is I make notes, when I get the email saying this is what they want, I will write it down, make sure I follow it very, very carefully, because once again, I don't want to spend the time doing an audition and just have it deleted because it's not, following their wishes. So make sure you follow their wishes. Okay, this is interesting. If I record an audition from home, can I send it directly to casting directors in LA and New York? That's a complicated question. Uh, Typically, here's what happens. In markets like New York and LA, you have to be there for the audition. Just so you know, there are exceptions to the rule. Absolutely. If your agent has a relationship with a casting director in New York and LA, yeah, you hear about this all the time, where they will put their client on tape and or email it and then email it into the casting director. Of course, those things can happen. If there is a part that casting is having problems filling, in New York or in LA, sometimes they will open it up across the country or outside of the United States. Sure, those things do happen. But typically, there are so many people that are available to go to these auditions who live there or live close enough that they can make it to the audition that they want you to be there. So there are certain areas where I have found where they are very open to seeing an audition from home. And I find this to be true in Louisiana. Find this to be true especially in Georgia. I find it to be true in North and South Carolina. Those are areas where I've had the most opportunities to audition from home. Now, sometimes you can be booked. I know people who've been booked directly from their audition that they did from home and emailed it in. What I find to be the case for me is that most of the time, the audition that I do from home is the first step. If they like the audition and they feel like I'm right for the part and they are calling me in for a callback, then I've got to go down there, wherever down there is, and go to the callback in person. So just keep that in mind. It's not like you can always do auditions from home and then never have to worry about, driving to a place. But, for me, like for instance, when I shot a feature film in Atlanta, and it takes me, between 11, 12 hours of driving to get to Atlanta from my home. So I saved myself, between 22 and 24 hours plus a night at a hotel from being able to audition from home initially. And then when I did get a call back, then I drove down there. Okay, let me go to another question here. Um, can I make the file smaller by only reading my lines and skipping the other lines? Well, that will make the file smaller because you might be cutting the audition in half. But let me just tell you, don't do that. Casting directors will not take you seriously. Casting directors need to see your reaction from the other actor's lines. And so you always, if there is another actor in the scene, if you are reading with somebody else, you have to have somebody reading lines with you. Now, one time I did this once. I thought it was a really neat idea. Didn't work out too well, and I'll share it with you pretty quickly here. So I got a phone call about doing a home audition. It was during the day. I'm home by myself. They wanted to get this back as soon as possible, and there was nobody to read with me. So what I did was I have a tape recorder, and I thought, this is a brilliant idea. I will record all of the other actors' lines on the tape, and I'll do it in a slightly different voice. And then I will time it so that I'll say my lines, hit the play button, and all of a sudden I hear the lines, then I respond, and I timed it out so that there really was a conversation taking place. I have to say, I was actually pretty impressed. And the casting director hated it. And the agent contacted me and said, "Hey, don't ever do that one again." So anyhow, I learned my lesson. You always want to have somebody else reading the lines. Don't skip other people's lines and just say your lines. Okay. Okay, before sending in an online audition, should I create a PowerPoint slide that has my name, my headshot, and resume, and contact information, almost like a demo reel? Don't. No, don't do that. Absolutely not. Um, Look, it makes things complicated. People want to see your audition. And if you start adding other things in there, it's going to take away from your audition. So make it simple, make it clean, and that's exactly what you want to do. And the person also kind of added in. Should they add in a resume? Should they add in background music to try to make the audition, more powerful? And absolutely not. Look, unless you are trying to book a job as writing the background music to a project, don't do that. People will start judging you on your either um, writing technique, scoring techniques. Um, don't do any of that stuff. Just read the lines. If they want you to slate, do the slate. Do you recommend that I sit or stand when I'm creating these auditions from home? No, that's a very good question. Well, part of it will be dependent on your home situation. If standing works and the background works well, that's fine. You know, a lot of people prefer to stand when they are auditioning. A lot of times, though, you might be in a situation where they have a chair for you in the casting director's office or studio, and that's where the lights are set up. Everything is focused on you sitting in that chair, and that's where you're going to be. So either way works. Whatever is best for your physical environment, but just also always make sure that the audition is chest to the top of the head. Okay. Um, if I'm using a laptop to record my auditions, oh, this is a good one. Okay, so how do I pull out to do a whole body shot if there's no zoom on the laptop? And that's a situation that I'm in. So for those times where part of the instruction for the slate is to do, chest to the top of the head, say your name or whatever additional information, and then pull out for a full body shot and then zoom back in. Here's what I do. So I'm recording and I will do my slate, and then I will ask somebody to, and I just let the record button stay on, and I'm still recording. And the person will just physically pick up the laptop, move back. I'll slide my chair out of the way, and that way you can see my full body shot, camera still running, and then I put my file cabinet back together, put my chair, put the laptop back in there, and then do a nice tight shot of my face. And then all I do is I just go into iMovie, and it's really simple. I just delete those additional frames that I don't need. And it takes a minute to do. It's really very, very easy. And that way, they can do the whole full body thing. So anyhow, that's how I do it. Let's see. Here's another one. I am single. I live alone in an apartment. Any suggestions on how I can get people to read with me? Yeah, that's a great question. So unless you have a dog who is very talented, uh, and if that's not the situation, here's what I would do. I would try to find some other actors um, who who are willing to help each other, and you can form like a little group of maybe just two or three, four other actors, and you help each other out, during your reads. And whenever somebody has an audition, you go to their place, or they could come over to your place, however you want to do it. That's one way of doing it. Another thing is if you have neighbors, that are able to do it, to come in and read, that would be great. I had mentioned Meetup before. That's a great way of just finding other people with similar interests, whether it's hobbies or somebody who wants to pursue, acting. And by the way, I haven't really mentioned much about modeling here, but if you're interested in modeling, sometimes if you can't attend a GOSI, which is the audition for models, then you also need to be able to take a nice, sharp, clear image. Now, for something like that, you can probably, not probably, you can easily get away with a iPhone. Um, and if for some reason you do need to edit it, once again, you can just email it to yourself, open it up, and crop it in the way that you want, or maybe you can do it on your phone and email it out. So this information is really helpful. I will still stand in front of my screen. If I have to send in a JPEG, I'll stand in front of my background with all my lights set up, just so that I know it's a really nice, sharp, clear image. But anyhow, with the meetup group, find other actors in your area. And like I said, you can form a nice, small community of people who are there to help each other. And just on a little bit of a side note, it's just a wonderful way to do things when you have other people who are willing to help, willing to share, trade services. Maybe somebody else has some great lights. Maybe they'll bring it over to your place, and you can work out all kinds of deals. The key thing with having other people read, they don't have to be great actors. You just want to make sure there's nothing distracting in their read that grabs somebody else's attention. Oh, as a matter of fact, here, this is interesting. So the next question that popped up, do you recommend that the reader really act out the lines or just read them flat? So, and once again, there are a couple different philosophies with this, and I'll tell you both, and then I'll tell you what I do. So one philosophy is, yeah, you want an actor. So this way you can really get something from the other actor. You know, you're looking in the other actor's eyes and really feel things. It makes it easier to get into character and do what you need to do in there as an actor. That's one philosophy. Another philosophy is you want somebody who reads the lines to you pretty dead without, and I'm not talking about making it sound very distracting, making it sound weird. I'm just saying there's no real life to it. Like for instance, let's say if the reader's lines, and I'm the reader, was this: how to record auditions from home online workshop presented by Aaron Marcus, America's premier acting, commercial modeling career coach. Okay, that was pretty dead, no excitement, no real life in there. Honestly, most of the time, if I am at an audition and I have a reader, I prefer lines to be read to me pretty flat, because if I've made a decision as to who my character is, I've made a decision as to what I want to do with this character, where I want to take this person, that will give me the freedom to do that. If the reader has his or her own ideas and starts taking me into another area, and that reaction would not be appropriate, then either I look like an actor who is not paying attention to the other actor that I'm reading with, or it's making me go into a place that I didn't think that was right for this particular role. So if I don't know the other actor, and I would prefer a flat read. If it's somebody that you do know, somebody who's helping you out at home, you can talk about it, you can rehearse. Yeah, then certainly it's better to have some emotion in there. But you just want to make sure that there is nothing that the reader is doing that grabs any attention to the audition. I'm not even talking about, oh, the other person might be so great that they might ask, hey, who was that other person? I'm just talking about it's not done in a way where somebody's just kind of shaking their heads. You know, the person can't get the lines out, they're stumbling, they're making mistakes, those kinds of things. You don't want that to have happen during your audition. Um, okay, since I'm reading from home, do I need to do, lots of takes to make sure that there are no mistakes in the final take? And that's a really good question too. Look, even though you are doing this at home and you do have the option of cut, didn't like that one, let's do it again, do it again, okay, cut, nah, wasn't thrilled about that. As opposed to at the casting director's office, quite often you're not going to get that many opportunities. If you do a read and you're really unhappy with it, sure, you can always ask the casting director, um, actually, there's something else I would like to do in there. Could I do that? Sure, you can do that, but you're not going to do, 4, 5, 6 takes with most casting directors. Yeah, there's some that might. That's not the norm. When you are auditioning at home, you do have that option to only send in what you think is the best take. Let me just tell you though, don't be a perfectionist. And what I mean by, I'm not saying just throw something together and just, slop it together and send it out. No, of course not. It has to be great. You have to be really, really happy with it. But sometimes, and once again, I've seen actors do this where they are so concerned about getting everything so perfect, and they do so many takes after takes after take after take after take, that by the time, and they keep, deleting, and then starting over, by the time they have done this for a long time period, they've become flat. It kind of sounds like it's become rote to them, and it's not interesting. So let me just tell you, it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes what I find is that the mistakes can be the most interesting part of the read. Sometimes when you were reading and all of a sudden you kind of forgot a word and you're thinking, sometimes that could be the most powerful part of the whole audition because it looks so real, and the audience or the casting director, the director, they're okay, what's going to happen next? Because they see you thinking. So no, it does not have to be perfect. Certainly make sure that you are proud of what you're sending out. You do not want to send anything out that you think, it's really not great, but let me just get it out there. Because not only does it make you look bad, and sometimes you only get one shot at a casting director, because if they don't like your read, they might not request you again. It also makes your agent look bad. So, no, it does not have to be perfect, but it has to be really good. And certainly, you can do, a number of takes, but don't kill it and don't squash it by just doing it over and over and over and over again. Okay, two more, and then we'll go to your questions if you have any. Is it okay to get feedback on my audition by posting it either on my Facebook page or YouTube before submitting it to the casting director? No, 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 absolutely not. I can't say that more emphatically. Never, 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 never post any audition um, on any kind of social media platform. Some some agents will have you sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, prior to doing the audition. You will not receive the sides, the words to the audition, until you sign this. TV shows are very concerned, and movies as well. People who are writing films, they're very concerned about their information getting out into the public prior to it airing. So you never want to make this public. You want to trash the copy after you've done it, after you've sent in the audition and they've received it, they've watched it, get rid of it. You never want to get this out because there are lots of legal issues that could come up if you are disclosing information. Let's say there's a major plot change that happens in this TV show that you're reading about, and it's not going to start shooting until next week. It's not going to air for 3 weeks or whatever it is. You're going to run into all kinds of problems. So no, never do that. Um, I think I say that pretty clearly. And one thing I also just wanted to mention, and I just thought about this. When you do have a reader, the volume of the other reader, um, you want to make sure that that person is heard, but you don't want them to overpower your read. So if you need to do a quick test with the reader, that's fine. They should be close enough so that they are heard, but you don't want them louder than you. And the very last question. Uh, Sometimes I find that with the lighting that I use, it makes me look a little yellow and washed out. Does that really matter, or are they really just looking at their performance? And that's also a really good question. No, that does matter a lot. And if you are looking kind of yellow, washed out, sometimes you can look bloated, depending on how you have the lights set up and the angle of the camera or your laptop or iPhone, whatever you're using. So make sure, here, let me just undo this thing here real fast. Make sure that you absolutely have the right lights so that you look sharp, you look clear, and that there is nothing that's going to distract somebody. And that would. If somebody is looking pale and yellow, it's going to look horrible. So anyhow, that was the very last question that was sent in to me. So Jonathan, I wanted to open this up now, and if there are any questions, I am more than happy to try to answer them for you here.
We do,
Jonathan, so are there any questions that have come
we
in?
have a couple that you didn't touch on. One is from Christine. I just tried to download Audacity and I got a message. Cannot install application because it is not compatible with your OS. I have a Mac and use a Yosemite operating system. Any advice?
Okay. Yeah, I know that Audacity, when I say I know, I'm just about positive. There are two different programs that they have. One is for PCs and one is for Macs. So first, make sure that you are trying to download the Audacity for your Mac. And if that still is an issue, then I would find out from Audacity what program you need on your Mac, and maybe you just need to update, your program on Mac, and hopefully that will make it work for you. And just so you know, I mean, there are other programs out there. That's the one that I've used. I use it on my Mac, and I use it on my PC. So it definitely is compatible with both.
Okay, here's one. Someone wants to know, I thought you were supposed to edit a submission that is self-tape. Is that true? Now, you covered that a little bit. It seems you need to keep taping until you get one that is semi-perfect. Working with kids can be stressful in having them do it over and over again. Can you talk about how perfect a submission needs to be, especially when dealing with children? It seems there's more pressure on doing a self-tape audition than going into the studio because there's a perception that this is your only chance to be seen.
Yeah, and you know what? Auditioning with kids, it's always complicated. And you're right. I mean, the depending on the age, the attention span can be a problem. Keeping, kids stationary, where they're supposed to be, can also be a little bit tricky. So, yeah, without a doubt, what you want to do, and it's kind of funny, thinking about it in these terms, but you probably want to have a stand-in for your child before you start shooting. And just to make sure you know what a stand-in does, on all feature films, all television shows, they all hire stand-ins. Those are the people who typically are the same height, same same body type, could be skin tones of the principal actor. So when they're getting the lights set up, let's say there's a scene where somebody's walking down a hallway and there's a dolly and the camera is rolling down the hallway following the actor. Well, they're not going to have the principal actor do this for an hour and then come back and then shoot for the next 5 hours. So what they'll do is they hire a stand-in. So what I would suggest doing, and look, for a kid, and for what you're doing, I wouldn't worry about, getting, a similar child with the same height and all that. You can just get anybody, but get the cameras set up, get the lighting set up, and you can even have an adult be the stand-in for the child, just to make sure that everything is in place. And that will cut out a lot of stress. It will cut out a lot of fidgeting with, your child. And then when you're ready to shoot, now bring your child in. And and maybe you can separate it into two different things if you do have to slate. Maybe just do the slate really fast, get that done with. Just get it over with, maybe take a little bit of a break and then come back because everything is still set up, and then do the audition itself. And no, it does not have to be perfect. If there is a word or two that's changed or dropped, that's fine. Don't worry about that. What you are most interested in is, does your child look comfortable in front of the camera? Are they saying the words so that it sounds conversational, so it doesn't sound like somebody's just reading lines? Um, is there some personality that you are seeing? And one of the things too that it makes it in some ways a little bit trickier and a little bit easier, and this holds true for both kids and adults, you don't have that much room unless you just happen to have a huge open space, where you can move around and the camera operator can follow you easily. But normally, you're going to have one spot, and not to say that you can't take a step or two in either direction, but you don't want to be running around the room. So, maybe that will make it a little bit easier if you just contain things and say, okay, so this is the area where we're going to be working. and then shoot it. And no, I would not, do a take 20 times or 15 times until it's perfect. Just shoot something so that the director, the casting director, can get a really clear idea of what your child is able to do. And if, like I said, if there are some little mistakes here and there, don't worry about it. There are always callbacks, and that's when they will, have your child do things more. Any other questions, Jonathan?
That was actually the last one, Aaron.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just wind this up here. First of all, just to let you guys know again, you will all be getting. Actually, you probably should have already gotten this, but I will resend it just to make sure. You will be getting a special login and password, and that way you'll be able to watch this entire workshop as often as you like. This will be up by Wednesday, and you also get the bonus materials there. Um, this was great. I had a wonderful time. One of the things that I do, if you have any questions, because sometimes I know this is a lot to digest at one time, and we've spent, like about an hour and a half here. If you have any questions afterwards, always feel free to shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to try to answer a question for you. It's just Aaron@howtomodel.com. It's AARON@howtomodel.com. Um, the other thing too is I would love to have you go to my facebook.com/how to model page. And I'd love to have you leave a little comment. And if you would talk about one or maybe two specific things that you found the most helpful here, that would be wonderful. And we can share with each other. And if you have questions, you can also ask there as well. And the other thing too is actually there are two other really quick things. I've got two online private mentoring programs. So if you would like to work with me privately, and we do this online, it's just one-on-one, you can go to howtomodel.com/coaching, and you can find that link right on howtomodel.com as well. And that way I can really gear a program specifically for you. And whether it's talking about and showing you how to create great headshots, comp cards, resumes, finding agents, marketing yourself, spending more time with auditions, we can do that as well. And I will be starting my 2015 season pass membership soon. I still have some things to put together for that. And every month I do online workshops. As you can see here, and this is the last one for 2014. When you become a season pass member, you get lots of benefits. We have monthly online mentoring programs. Meet up every month. We talk, share information, talk about different topics. You will get over $1,600 worth of materials free. That would be great. And you'll save over 70% of the fee of attending every monthly online workshop. And the best thing to do is just shoot me an email at aaron@howtomodel.com, and I can send you more information about my 2015 membership, season pass membership. This was great. I had a great time doing this. Uh, I, basically am sharing all the information that I use that I find really, really helpful for online workshops. And I can't wait to talk with you guys again soon. See ya. I'm Aaron Marcus.